Farbringen of Simchas Torah Tovshin Chai, that was the famous Farbringen that has to do with the known Simchas Torah of Kalt and Shmutzig. That time Simchas Torah was Thursday and Friday, and then there was Shabbos. So Shabbos was Shabbos Breishis. Shabbos Breishis, two Farbringens. There's Farbringen in the morning, and then there's Farbringen in the evening, towards the evening. The big Simchas Torah Farbringen, which in such a kvias was always Shabbos Breishis. So on the Farbringen of the morning, that's when the Rebbe spoke about Kalt and Shmutzig. What happened was that it was raining a lot, and in the sukkah, which that's where was the place where Hakofis was, that's the place where they davened. Upstairs was a small shul, it was small. So downstairs they had what they called the shalash, which was the big yard, which is really a sukkah. And sukkah, it was schach on top, but other times of the year, on top of the schach, they would put on a big canvas, and that would protect, and the Rebbe would farbring there. There are a lot of holes in the canvas. You can imagine it wasn't. So there were holes in the canvas, and it was raining, and it rained downstairs, and it got full of blotter, full of dirt, of mud downstairs. So normally they would daven there. And the Rebbe said, he expected to daven there, but when he went out, the Gabbai was standing there, and asked them, where are we going to daven? The Rebbe hoped they say downstairs, and the Gabbai said, as we daven eben is shul, weil unten is kalt und schmutzig, because downstairs it's cold and dirty. So they davened upstairs, but then Lepel, the Farbringen, was all downstairs. But I can remember one of the Farbringens, I was a kid, but I remember one of the Farbringens, the Rebbe walked out, the Rebbe had to walk on the benches. It was mud on the floor, so they made the benches where the people stood, that they cleared it, and when the Rebbe walked out from the shalash, from the Farbringen, he walked out on the benches, he was walking on the benches. So by the Farbringen, Shabbos Breishis, the first Farbringen, the Rebbe, middle of the Farbringen, spoke about it. And he said that based on what Hashem Tzvot, that everything you see or you hear is Ahira and Aveda. So when the Shliach came and he said, as Sikalt Nishmutzig, that means it's a Shliach Milmaila. That means that Nachal's Kalt Nishmutzig is still cold and dirty. And he went on crying. I remember crying bitterly. As a kid, I remember it was crying. He even cried so much that he put his head down on the table. And he said that it's already after Elul and after Rosh Hashanah and after Aseres Mitzvah and Yom Kippur and Daled Yom Ben Yom Kippur, the Sukkos and Chalamed and Shana Rabbah. It was noch alles kalt und schmutzig and still kalt und schmutzig. And he explained what kalt und schmutzig is. And it bothered him so much that this is a Hero Milmaila. And this was the famous Farbringen of the Kalt and Shmutzig. A few years later, this was Tovshin Chav Gimel. See, the first one was Tovshin Chai. This was Tovshin Chav Gimel, which is 5 years later. The Kislev was Sunday. Shabbos was Chai Kislev. And I remember it wasn't sure there would be Farbringen even. But right before Shabbos, the electricity went out, which meant that there is no electricity, so it's dark. And also, it's cold. Downstairs was very cold. This was already in the shul. There was not the shalaz, the shul, so they had heating, but there was no electricity, so there was no heat. So Friday night, when it came to come down, so the Gabbai, the same Gabbai, Rebbe Yochanan Gordon, stood there and told the Rebbe that we can't daven downstairs, but unten is kalt und finster. It's cold and dark. The Rebbe didn't say anything, went davened upstairs. I remember even Shachris was upstairs. Imagine Tovshin Chav Gimel, even though it wasn't a crowd like years later, obviously, but there was still already a big crowd to be able to daven. The Rebbe's minyan should be upstairs, but that's what was Rebbe's minyan's upstairs, and then no one knew if there'd be a Farbringen or not. Lepel Mamish, after davening, the Rebbe said there will be a Farbringen downstairs. So the Farbringen was downstairs in the cold, so to speak, in the dark. The Rebbe came down the Farbringen. I'm pretty sure that the Rebbe came down with a coat over his shoulders. I don't remember. I think so. Came down, and there was a regular Farbringen. And it was in the dark. But it wasn't that dark because behind the Rebbe, those years, were the windows. So some light came in through the windows. And the Rebbe Farbringed, and towards the end of the Farbringen, the Rebbe told the story of this person who didn't know anything, but was learning Tzenorena, and the Tzenorena, he learned the parshas of Vayeshev about the sale of Yosef. They sold Yosef. His brother sold Yosef. So when he was learning it, reading it, he felt so bad, he started crying. He was saying, is there such a thing doing to Yosef? Then came next year, and he read the story again. This time he wasn't crying. And he asked him why. So he said, now I have no Rachmanis on you. You remember from last year what happened. Well, was kriegst du weiter? Why are you going again? So the Rebbe used this, that since already this is the second time. The first time, Tovshin Chai, he got nispol from this. Now he doesn't get nispol from this. But he still spoke about it. And then After the Farbrengen, the Rebbe said, we're davening mincha down here. Always, those years, even later years, after the Farbrengen, the Rebbe would go out of the Zal, out of the shul, go upstairs to his room, and a few minutes later would come out upstairs. They would daven mincha upstairs after the Farbrengen. The very later years, it started that they daven downstairs straight after the Farbrengen. But those years, the Rebbe would leave the Farbrengen, go to his room, and then daven upstairs. This time, the Rebbe said, but Dafke, we're staying here, we're not going upstairs, we're going to daven mincha down here, which means davening mincha in the dark, in the cold, so to speak. And the Rebbe did the Dafke to show as a vertnish and small from them. The Peil, Matzah Shabbos, they fixed the electricity, and the next night was a Farbrengen, and everything was Seder.